Hello, future millionaires, and welcome back to the Get Rich Slow podcast. We are your hosts, Adrian Shermer, Rob Delavan, and Lance Johnson. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And
Welcome,
we are,
Sarah. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
heck yeah, joined again by Sarah Vanhoose. Part two in a three-parter on her and her life and the services she offers. Part of her company, Journey to Influence, which I absolutely love. Today, we're going to talk to Sarah, who is a financial coach, as we talked about. She's focused on helping individuals, couples, and small business owners stress less about money by making a plan and walking through it with encouraging accountability through her online coaching business, Journey to Influence. As a trained Ramsey Preferred Finance Master Coach, she makes money stuff simple and easy to understand, going back to basics. Sarah's background as a leader in a large healthcare organization, and she and her husband James have two daughters, and they live in Portland, Oregon. And as an aside here, as usual, you can find out more about what we are doing outside of the podcast at roi-fa.com/events. That's a great place to get links to our individual websites, find out what's happening locally. If you want to be part of one of our wine and learn events, or we did the movie theater thing pretty recently. We're always doing something fun out there. We love to engage with you guys. But today is all about Sarah. And today specifically, we're going to be learning about the business journey to influence and what sets you apart as a coach.
All right, Sarah, tell us about your business. What makes you so passionate about it? And what makes you different and set you apart?
That's such a good question. My business is online coaching. So I love that we can do these things through Zoom these days.
Whole new world, right?
Right. It's a whole new world. I love helping others, just come side by side with them and helping walk with them through their financial journey. My business was created out of passion, marrying my passion for leadership, and which is another word for coaching, and finances, and kind of blending that together. A couple of years ago, my husband and I were vacationing down in Mexico and had kind of picked out like a retirement home for ourselves and thought about what we were going to be doing later on. And as we were getting back on the airplane, I had this epiphany moment where I was like, wait a minute, like, why do we have to wait to do these things that we love until we're old? Like, I don't want to do that. So my husband looked at me and he said, well, number one, how many drinks have you had? Number two,
always a good question.
Yeah, right? It was a solid question. You make a plan for that, and we'll kind of talk about it. So I did. Like, I made a plan. I was like, all right, I'm going to pencil out what it looks like to, rent out our current home. We're going to, just like vacate for a couple of years and, move south, bring the kids, teach them all about the community and culture and language of being somewhere different, and just like live the life that we really want. I started a blog. That's where my journey to influence my husband to move to Mexico was originated. And it grew from there. So in this blog, I talked about what it would look like to kind of pick up and do something crazy, like this crazy idea about doing something different and living life on my own terms, and making sure that our finances supported that. As I began blogging, one of my most popular blogs was just showcasing, it was about like transportation, how we were going to get around, when we were down in Mexico. And I had referenced the fact that we had paid cash for our vehicles, like our most recent vehicle purchase, we had paid cash. And in that conversation, there were so many people that came back and were like, oh my gosh, that's so unusual. How did you do that? Like, what is this? So strange, right? This is crazy. And It was at that point that I learned that there were more people that were like me that realized that there was another alternative, for really kind of mountains of debt. And my husband and I had gotten ourselves out of debt several years prior. And so we had the ability to kind of think differently about what our life looked like without the debt load. So in those months following those blog posts, my husband ultimately decided that he really didn't want to move to Mexico. He is also self-employed, and he's like, I don't know that I want to move my business to Mexico, but maybe you need to be doing something differently. And at the time I was working for a large healthcare organization in a leadership role, lots of hours, right? And lots of responsibility. And I really wanted to have more flexibility and freedom in terms of what I did. And so I was able to reflect a little bit and be like, okay, well, what do I really want to do? Chapter 2 of my life, how can I marry what I know and love about operations, right, and leadership with personal finances, which I heard, right, the need for that. And I had personal love for, a good spreadsheet on the back of a napkin, or napkin math or whatever it looked like, making a plan for your money. And that's how my coaching business was born, from this idea to move to Mexico to seeing the need for people doing money a little bit differently and putting those things together.
So would you say you were looking for like some freedom from the status quo? I'm trying to kind of pick up that concept, right? Like, what was that core that was the driver?
Yeah, it was definitely the freedom and flexibility to not drive into work every Monday through Friday and be able to impact lives in a different way.
That's fascinating. What do you get asked most by your clients, and what would you say the number one pain point is that you solve for them?
I think the number one question that I get asked by clients is, how do I start? Like, how do I start with my finances? And there, it comes with a lot of shame, honestly. The folks that are reaching out to me are, they're not, fresh out of college necessarily. They're in their late 20s, they're in their 30s, they're in their 40s. They're in their 50s and 60s, right? Sometimes, and they're a little embarrassed that they don't maybe have all of their financial house in order, and they really just want to know, like, okay, how do I get started? And
shouldn't I know this by now?
There's like some embarrassment and some shame that goes with that. And unfortunately, money management or financial literacy is not common core, right, in colleges or in high schools, as I think that it should be. So people are learning through trial and error, and sometimes a lot more error, right, than they wish.
You said, like, the shame or embarrassment, like that's the pain point, obviously. I mean, that's a symptom of the pain point, is I guess what I would say. Like, so addressing that, what's that look like?
Yeah, it's helping people strategize, right, around what their plan should look like. Budgeting, creating a budget for yourself is one of those core tools that I use with my clients. Sometimes we call it a spending plan because that feels just a little bit better, whatever you want to call it. But it's making an intentional plan for your money and helping people with the habits and the daily ins and outs of what that looks like, and sometimes modifying your habits or your behaviors around how you use your money. It really deals with the person, right, the individual, and their relationship with money most of all.
And I'd like to hear a little bit of dialogue between you and Lance of kind of the difference in the relationship between like that personal financial coach and like the financial advisor, and what's that.
Especially because you guys used very similar language here. We've got going back to the basics, and we've got Mr. Brilliant at the basics. Maybe that's part of where the shame comes from. People think it kind of is simple, but then it's not easy to execute, is it?
Oh, that's such a good point, right? It is, it's simpler, I think, than people think that it is, right? At times, just like taking control of your money. With a financial advisor, right, like Lance, my job as a coach is to make sure that my clients are ready to invest, right? I want them to have, again, be more intentional with their money, which means, right, diversifying and investing those things, but they have to have enough money to do that with. They have to have enough margin and enough breathing room within their current income. They can't spend it all, right, in order to make sure that they're ready to do more proper planning.
Yeah, we're like two concentric circles that come closer and closer together to make one big circle. And the biggest thing I look at is time. You can't make up time. So some of the anxiety that people feel is that the longer time goes on and they feel broken, the more resentment they have, because it's less time for them to get ahead of the curve. And so they just feel like they can never dig themselves out of a hole, or they're always drinking from a straw underneath the water. So time is addressing time and then addressing change. Sarah, and not knowing enough about you, but as I learned throughout this year, Dave Ramsey's like, get yourself out of debt, get yourself out of debt. Once you're all out of debt, then start saving. Whereas I might say, let's start saving, free up cash flow through tax savings to apply towards debt. And so then there's this chicken and the egg. Neither one of them are right or wrong. It's just which one really resonates to the client, which one is the client going to adopt faster to get them using time to their side. As an investment advisor, we're always talking about money and time value of money. So we want people to make money and save and get ahead of them. But if a lot of people don't budget, or they don't track their expenses. So if you don't track your expenses, then you got to make up a budget to try to keep you on track, knowing that budgets are like year-end resolutions. You're always going to break them. So you just got to have a modification that takes place so that you can keep on a railroad track per se. And so I think it's interesting. I'm very looking forward to working with Sarah, because you got two different philosophies that accomplish the same thing. And I think 1 + 1 can equal 3 here, as we hopefully work together on the course of this next year.
Yeah. I think when it comes down to, like you said, it's not wrong. It's just different. Right. And using money is not moral. Right. So it's finding what sticks with each client. Like you said, some are going to gravitate towards one or the other. And sometimes they don't know what they don't know. Right. So we need to lay out, right, some different options and different ways to get them to those results faster. And planning, just intentional planning, I think, is just part of that. And sometimes they really need somebody that's not in their household, right? That can come outside and look in and be like, okay, let's take a look at this. Like, let's do this together.
Yeah. Sometimes we end up being the mediator between the two people.
It's true.
Because you grow up with different philosophies. There's 15% that are savers and 85% that are spender. I'm a spender that saves 32% of his gross income. But man, I find that hard. And given my base relaxation towards when I get to that point, I'll spend money because I'm a spender by nature. It's kind of like I'm brown-eyed and bald, and you're blonde hair and blue eyes. You can't change who you are. You just have to modify your routines to embrace the future of finance.
And I think create awareness like around what your natural state is, and also like what triggers. I work with a lot of clients on thinking, as you indicated, right, a lot of spenders, right, are out there. Okay, what happens when you kind of go off the deep end with your spending? What happened just before that? Like what's feeding into those things, so that we can kind of catch them sooner and perhaps have some alternatives or some boundaries, right, around that spending, so that you can still do what feels best or what feels right without compromising your situation.
So my wife and I have adopted the Delavan spending habit. And so we try to spend his money instead of our money, and it works a lot better.
There you go.
We're gonna have to do a whole episode on that one, I think.
Standard strategy. Yeah.
We need a bell every time that comes up. So the last question for you today, Sarah, is what are you most excited about right now? Right now.
Just today. So, ironically, I'm sure it's going to have passed by the time this episode airs. But I am launching a membership program called Friends with Budgets. And it is just a low-cost membership in order to help support more people getting educated around how they're using their money, get strategies and tips around just different components around what money looks like through some group coaching and some helpful reminders on a regular basis. So super excited about offering, again, a low cost opportunity. Working with me one-on-one is a higher ticket price point, and I wanted something that's more accessible. Again, that whole journey to influence is around dropping the money shame, encouraging people and supporting them in a different way. So I'm really excited about that.
And of course, it's a very clever little pun. And how do folks connect with that?
Yeah, that my website should have more information about it. MyJourneyToInfluence.com.
Gotcha. And so literally you said it's happening today. So this is spring, late spring of 2022. We'll have to keep tabs on you on that one. That's going to be fun.
Can you say it again? Say the phrase again.
Friends with Budgets.
There you go.
That's the name of the membership. It will probably be closed. We're opening and closing within a week, and then we will reopen the membership in the fall.
Okay. So it's basically like a beta test here.
Yeah, we're testing it out and seeing how many people we can get in and help support. And then also it's exclusive. Like I want some best friends up in there. So we're just gonna open and close in a short period of time.
Okay. Interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thank you again, Sarah, for enlightening us with your knowledge. And this is part 2 of a 3-part series, so I'm really excited about what we're going to be recording next. But there's some solid information here, and I hope that our audience walks away with some important ideas in your mind. Sarah, when I first met you, and especially as I entered finance myself, I would have thought your services were sort of tier 1, and then maybe you'd work your way up to someone like Lance Johnson. But I got to say, I've got a decade in real estate now, and my job is to analyze people's personal income and asset situations. And I know people who have dual 6-figure incomes. I know people who are multi-millionaires who I have talked to who could desperately use services like yours. And I think Lance even himself might have admitted that these are the kind of basic building blocks that a lot of people need to get where they're going in life, or to get where they want to be in life. So I hope that we can guide more people to you. I love working with everyone in this room because you are the part of the financial sector that is passionate about helping people grow. And I hope our audience can gain from some of your wisdom here. Sarah Vanhoose, Journey to Influence, Sarah at myjourneytoinfluence.com. You can also reach her at 503-961-4602. And you can get our individual websites. We're going to have up on a slide here as well. Go ahead and jump on the Get Rich Slow podcast to find links to the rest of our information and our disclosures, the always necessary information about all the disclosures for our industry. Thank you so much, audience, for joining us. Sarah, we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.